So I collaborated with my friend and colleague Holly Bino, who's currently the chief curator at the National Art Gallery at the Bahamas. And we were trying to develop a strategy to mitigate isolation and working as people kind of leading artist-led initiatives in the Southern Caribbean and wanting to foster relationships with other people working across the Caribbean. And so we thought that Tilting Axis would be an opportunity to bring together people from other artist-led initiatives across the region and to have a conversation, to have a sense of what critical ideas were being shared in relation to contemporary visual practice across the region. And so we shaped Tilting Axis as a kind of a collegiate period of several days. We started in Barbados and brought people in from around the Caribbean to convene and to discuss and to think about ways in which we could have a healthier cultural ecosystem in relation to the visual arts. So the first one was at Fresh Milk, which is an artist-led initiative that I founded in 2011. It's a platform that sits in Barbados. We have a micro-residency program and a reading room. So the first one came out of there. As a result of the conversations that happened there, we started thinking about issues like art education, mobility, residencies, exhibition planning. We then developed partnerships with the Perez Art Museum in Miami and Res Artis, which is a residency program, a residency initiative. And we had our second iteration at the Perez Art Museum in Miami with our partner Tobias Ostrander, who is the chief curator there. At that second iteration, we had just about 80 people coming in. And then Natalie Urquhart, who is the director of the National Gallery of the Cayman Islands, offered to host the third iteration. And so she welcomed just under 80 people to the National Gallery of Cayman Islands in 2017. And at that meeting, Sarah Herman offered to host the fourth iteration here in Santo Domingo and Santiago. I feel great. I feel great about it. It's a roving meeting that moves in and out of the Caribbean. So it's had 3 iterations. This will be the 3rd iteration on Caribbean soil and 1 iteration in the United States in Miami, which is a kind of a mini Caribbean city. So I feel very good about it because it's an opportunity for people who are committed to growing the visual arts, contemporary visual arts practice in the Caribbean to come together, because very often a lot of us work in small islands across an archipelago. It's quite challenging to move, it's quite expensive to move. And so this is an opportunity to grow our networks and to connect with people who are interested in changing the space that we work in. So I feel very excited that so many people are coming in to the Dominican Republic. We have about 80 people coming in to share projects that they're doing and to invest in the conversation that we'll be having. So, I mean, I feel that there's a lot of very exciting things that are happening in the Caribbean at the moment. I think there are a lot of initiatives that are happening that are being led by small artist-led entities that are really shifting the landscape and functioning outside of formal organizations. I think that we're also trying to form alliances with different kinds of networks and organizations. So I feel quite excited by what the internet is allowing us to do, how the internet is allowing us to engage more frequently with our colleagues around the region and the diaspora. In terms of this iteration, I feel excited that we've grown the program a bit, so we're introducing something new called a sobremesa, this kind of informal conversation that happens after lunch over coffee. So we very carefully curated a series of 3 sobremesas that brings together people speaking about their own work and looking at the kinds of alliances or overlaps in terms of their practices. So yeah, I mean, I think that we're at an exciting time. There's a lot that's going on. Fresh Milk actually has an interactive map that shows a number of art spaces across the Caribbean from the 19th century. And so it pushes against the idea that there's nothing happening in the Caribbean. There's a lot happening in the Caribbean. And so I think Tilting Axis is contributing to that growing network. I haven't been here for a long time. I work as a visual artist, and the Dominican Republic for me was quite important because after I returned to the Caribbean after graduate school, I came to show my work in 1992 at the Museum of Modern Art in the first biennial. And so that's actually where I met Sarah and some of my colleagues from around the region, like Elvis Lopez from Aruba. And so I began to have a sense of myself as a Caribbean person, in part because I came here and started to feel less isolated and to meet my colleagues. I participated in a number of other exhibitions, but I haven't spent a lot of time on the ground here. So I don't feel that I can speak with any authority about the contemporary art space. Tony Capian, whose work we're, honoring in the Tilting Axis meeting here, would have been someone that I would have met in the early 90s. So that generation of artists, it's their work and practice that I would be a bit more familiar with than some of the younger practitioners. I mean, I visited a couple of galleries a few years ago, but I can't speak with any authority on what's happening here. But what I would like to think is that at the end of Tilting Axis, and having met all of the curators in Curando Caribe and the people working here, that I'll have a much better sense of what's happening in the moment.